Where's the money?
You've already been paid. In full.
Dude, it's change. I want everything.
I don't think so.
The story begins with an ex-convict named Kris, recently released and smuggled into Colombia by a shady truck driver. But once inside a junkyard near the Colombian border, things take a dark turn. The driver pulls out a machete and demands more money, despite already being paid in full. Kris tries to reason with him, but another thug joins in, demanding everything he has.
I don't think so.
After the fight, Kris steals the truck and vanishes into the streets of Colombia. Later, he visits the grave of his ex-girlfriend on the outskirts of the city. Not long after, he begins trailing a 15-year-old teenager named Elisa. He follows her from school all the way back to her father's lavish mansion. Her father is none other than Vicente, a ruthless cartel boss with blood on his hands. Vicente welcomes Elisa with warmth but with sinister intentions, asking her to be available for his highly distinguished guests at an upcoming party. Elisa agrees, even promising to bring some of her friends. Meanwhile, in a quiet warehouse, we meet El Corvo, a psychotic assassin, methodically polishing his metal prosthetic arm and sharpening the hidden blade in it. Later that evening, he walks into a local cake shop. He says nothing and touches nothing. When the waitress politely asks him to leave, El Corvo slides out the hidden knife and forces her to eat cake straight off its razor-sharp edge. A female cop bursts in just in time, ordering him to back off. El Corvo says nothing and calmly walks out, but hides in her patrol car. Moments later, as the officer and the shaken waitress climb inside, Corvo rises from the back seat and murders them both in cold blood. The next morning, Elisa is escorted to school by armed guards. Kris, dressed like a homeless man, he breaks their car mirror to provoke a reaction. Elisa panics and tries to run down the road. But Kris jumps into the car, cuts her off, and tosses her into the trunk. He speeds off, leaving her stunned bodyguards behind. Word of Elisa's kidnapping reaches Vicente. Enraged, he savagely beats the two guards to death with his bare hands. Then, cold and composed, he orders a hit on the man who dared to touch his daughter. Meanwhile, Kris is driving through the countryside with Elisa still locked in the trunk. At one point he pulls over on the side of the road. But when he lifts the lid, Elisa bursts out swinging a tire iron, striking him before sprinting into the woods. Kris chases her down, begging her to stop. He shows her an old photo of him, her mother, and Vicente together. He tells her they were once close, and before her mother died, she made him promise to take Elisa away if anything ever happened. Elisa doesn't buy it and demands proof. In a desperate attempt to earn her trust, Kris pulls out his gun, places it on the ground, and steps back, telling her to take it if it makes her feel safe. Elisa grabs the weapon and fires, testing if it's loaded. Then she turns it on him and demands to be taken home. When Kris refuses, she pulls the trigger, only to discover there was just one bullet. Kris soon realizes they're running low on gas, so he pulls into a small roadside station. As he steps out to fill the tank, Elisa sees her chance. She runs toward a group of local men playing football, screaming for help. The men assume Kris is some kind of predator and rush to stop him.
Elisa!
Kris quickly fights them off and drags Elisa back to the vehicle, but this time, he ties her up. Elisa thrashes violently, kicking the seat and screaming. That's when Kris drops a bombshell. He tells her he's actually her real father. Elisa freezes, stunned, and stares at him in disbelief. After a long pause, she quietly says she's hungry, and Kris says nothing. He simply starts the car and drives off in search of food. What neither of them knows is that a bounty hunter is already tracking them. Meanwhile, back at Vicente's mansion, his right-hand man secretly places a call to El Corvo. He tells him that the girl has been taken. Later, Kris and Elisa stop at a small restaurant. Over a quiet meal, Kris explains everything: how he ended up in prison, how he believes Vicente murdered Elisa's mother, and why he had no choice but to come for her. Soon, a bounty hunter shows up, armed and hungry to cash in. Kris pretends to surrender, then strikes with lightning speed. In the chaos, the thugs grab Elisa and shoot out Kris's tires, leaving him stranded outside the restaurant. Furious, Kris unleashes a savage beating on the last thug, forcing him to reveal where they've taken her. Soon, Elisa is moved to a new hideout, this one owned by the old man. He calls Vicente and confirms that his men will pick her up soon. But Elisa doesn't stay quiet. She confronts Vicente, accusing him of playing a role in her mother's murder. Before Vicente can respond, El Corvo storms the hideout.
Hide there if you want to leave. Come on, muévanse!
Kris arrives just in time to face off with Corvo in a brutal clash of fists against steel. As the fight rages, Elisa grabs a gun and fires, giving Kris a split-second advantage. She runs, but Corvo goes after her. Kris once again intervenes and smacks him down. The old man grabs a machine gun and tries to stop Corvo, but it's useless. Corvo slashes his throat with the hidden blade in his prosthetic arm. Just when all hope seems lost, Elisa returns behind the wheel and runs Corvo over. It's just enough to give her and Kris another shot at freedom. Kris plans to get her across the border into the US, but Elisa refuses to leave. Frustrated, she drives off alone in the truck, unaware that Corvo is following close behind. She pulls over to call Vicente, but Corvo catches up and corners her in the alley. In his most unsettling moment yet, he calmly offers her an apple and urges her to take a bite. Suddenly, Kris arrives, but Corvo now has a gun to Elisa's head, warning him to surrender or she dies. With no other choice, Kris gives himself up and is quickly restrained. Corvo vanishes with Elisa, leaving Kris helpless. The next morning, Vicente and his men find Kris hanging from a tree, left by Corvo as a message. Vicente and his men cut him down. Furious, Kris accuses Vicente of murdering Elisa's mother, prompting Vicente to punch him to the ground. Soon after, Corvo calls Vicente, reminding him of his betrayal. Vicente had tried to eliminate him after their last job together. He gives him a location to meet if he wants his daughter back. In a shocking twist, Corvo reveals to Vicente that his right-hand man tipped him off. Vicente gets angry and puts a bullet in the snitch's head right there in the vehicle. Vicente finally admits Corvo was working for him and he lost his arm during one of the missions. Soon, they arrive at the old factory where Elisa is chained to a giant crushing machine. Vicente refuses to give Kris a gun and orders him to stay behind. Corvo initially brutally kills Vicente's henchman before taking Vicente hostage. Corvo gives Vicente a twisted choice: cut off her hand to be like him or let her die. As the machine pulls her closer, Kris arrives to stop Corvo while Vicente struggles to stop the pulling chain. Corvo stabs Kris in the stomach, then taunts Vicente, forcing him to confess. Vicente finally admits he ordered Elisa's mother killed. Corvo tells Vicente there's no time to save Elisa, but Kris tells Elisa to toss her diamond necklace into the chain, and the machine jams. Corvo charges, trying to throw her in himself, but Kris tackles him, and Vicente, in a final moment of redemption, slices Corvo's throat with a saw and pushes him over the ledge. Corvo pulls Vicente with him, and both fall to their deaths. At the top of the factory, Elisa stands safe. She walks toward a bloodied but alive Kris. She embraces her father for the first time, and this father-daughter moment closes the film. Subscribe for more dramas like this, and don't forget to like this video, it really helps the channel grow.